the most powerful move you can make in that moment. Nothing. Absolute silence. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you choose not to lower yourself to the game they invented. That's what we're getting into today. How silence, used right, is the sharpest weapon you'll ever carry. Stick around to the end. I'm going to show you a one-word reply that stops most provocateurs cold. If you find this useful, hit subscribe. I put out videos like this every week, and they don't always come back around. Think about the last time someone got under your skin. What did they actually want? Not a fight. Fights are messy. They lose friends. They cost energy. What they wanted was a reaction. Your face going red. Your voice cracking. Your composure slipping just enough so they could feel for 1 second like they had power over you. That's it. That's the whole game. And if you understand that, you can opt out of it entirely. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this, not in a lecture hall, not in a book tour, but in his private journal at the end of long days running an empire. He wrote it for himself. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He wasn't describing a theory. He was reminding himself of something he kept forgetting. The way we all do when someone gets in our face. So here's the first move. The observer's look next time someone throws something at you. An insult, a snide comment, a pointed dig in front of other people. Don't look away. Don't tighten up. Look at them the way a scientist looks at something unusual on a lab table. Calm, a little curious, like you're watching a storm through a thick window, comfortable on the other side of the glass. That look does something specific. It tells them their words landed in empty space. There's no wound, no reaction to feed on. You're not angry. You're not hurt. You're just watching. And that breaks the whole script they had in their head. Most people, when they provoke someone, expect one of two things: explosion or retreat. If you explode, they win. If you retreat, they think they broke you. But when you just look at them still, steady, present, they don't know what to do with that. It doesn't fit the story. And suddenly, they're the one who looks out of place. Now, the second move. This one is uncomfortable to practice, but it works every single time. After the provocation, after the dig, the insult, whatever it was, say nothing. Don't nod. Don't look away. Just let the silence sit there. 4 seconds. 5, if you can hold it. I know that sounds like a long time. It is. That's exactly the point. Silence is a vacuum. People can't stand empty space in conversation, especially the kind of person who relies on reactions to feel okay about themselves. So they'll start talking again. They'll try to cover the gap. They'll explain the joke, walk back the comment, get louder to cover their own nerves. You'll watch the confidence drain right out of them in real time. The person who fills the silence first is almost always the one who loses. Let them fill it. Third move. The minimalist reply. Sometimes you do need to say something. Social context doesn't always allow for pure silence, but you don't need much. A flat, calm "I see." A slow nod, followed by a glance back at whatever you were doing before they interrupted you. Or, if they're really pushing, "Are you finished?" Then back to your world like they were never there. That's not passive. That's not weak. That communicates something very specific. You're not worth disrupting my day over. And it does it without a single insult, without drama, without giving them anything to use against you later. I've heard from people who've tried this. Some after watching this channel. Some after years of getting chewed up by difficult people at work or at home. And the consistent thing they say is, "I didn't say a word," and they just stopped. Because the whole mechanism breaks down when you don't play along. Here's what the Stoics understood that most people miss. Emotional control isn't about suppressing feeling. It's not about pretending nothing bothers you. Epictetus wasn't some stone-faced guy who felt nothing. He was a man who was literally enslaved, and he still figured out that no one could touch what happened inside his own mind without his permission. That's the thing that held, not his freedom, not his circumstances, his response. When you use silence as your answer, you're not running, you're choosing. You're saying, this person doesn't get to be the author of my next move. I decide what happens here. And that decision, quiet as it is the most powerful thing in the room. Real authority doesn't need to announce itself. The loudest person in the room is almost never the most dangerous one. It's the still one, the one who looks at the chaos, chooses nothing, and walks away unscratched. That's what you're building. Not a reputation for being cold, a reputation for being someone who can't be moved, and you can't fake that. You can only practice it until it's just who you are. And here's what nobody tells you about silence. It gets easier. The first time you try it, every instinct in your body will push back. You'll feel the urge to explain yourself, to defend, to prove they're wrong. That pull is real. It's been wired into you since you were a kid on a playground trying to make things fair. But fairness isn't what's on the table here. Power is. And power doesn't argue. The second time someone comes at you and you stay still, it feels a little less foreign. By the third time, you start to notice something strange. You stop needing them to know they lost. You stop needing the acknowledgement. The victory becomes quieter, more internal. And that's when you know the shift is actually happening. There's a specific kind of person who will test this skill the hardest. Not a stranger. A stranger is easy. You walk away and never see them again. The hard ones are the people close to you. A coworker who takes small shots in meetings. A family member who has a gift for saying the one thing they know will sting. Someone who's learned your triggers over years and uses them like a map. These people are harder to stay still around because the history is in the room with you, but the principle doesn't change. If anything, it matters more. Because the closer someone is to you, the more your reaction means to them. A stranger's provocation is just noise, but when someone who knows you watches you not react, when they throw the thing they've thrown 100 times and it just doesn't land, that registers differently. It makes them recalibrate. It makes them wonder what changed. And that question, sitting in their head, is more powerful than any comeback you could have delivered. You don't have to explain the change. You don't have to announce it. You just become it. Here's something Marcus Aurelius understood that took me a long time to actually absorb. He wrote about the obstacle being the way, not as a motivational phrase, but as a literal operating principle. The provocateur in front of you isn't an interruption to your peace. They're the practice ground for it. Every time someone tries to pull you out of yourself, and you stay, you get a little harder to move, a little more solid. The storms don't stop coming. You just stop being the kind of thing that gets knocked over. Think about the people you've seen who carry real authority, not loud authority, not the manager who yells, not the guy who dominates every room by volume. I mean the kind of person who walks in, says little, and somehow everybody adjusts to them. You've met someone like that. Maybe you couldn't explain at the time why they felt different, but you felt it. That quality isn't charisma in the traditional sense. It's groundedness. It's the visible evidence that they've been tested and didn't move. And people can feel that. It doesn't need a label. That's what you're building when you practice this, not a technique, a character. Silence also does something else, something people underestimate. It forces the other person to hear themselves. When you react, you give them something to respond to. The focus shifts to you, your reaction, your words. The whole thing becomes about you. But when you say nothing, the last thing spoken was theirs. And it sits there, in the air, in front of everyone watching. Sometimes the most devastating thing you can do to someone is make them the only person responsible for what just happened. No editing, no rebuttal, just their words hanging. I want to be honest about something. There will be situations where silence alone isn't enough. where the person in front of you is in a position of authority over you, or where staying silent gets misread as acceptance of something you didn't accept. In those cases, the minimalist reply matters more. Not a paragraph, not a speech, one flat, clear sentence. That's not something I'm going to engage with. Then nothing else. You're not opening a conversation, you're closing one. The key is that even in those moments, you're not operating from agitation, you're operating from choice. That's the line. The Stoics made a distinction that cuts through most of the noise around this topic. They called it the dichotomy of control, the things in your power and the things that aren't. What someone else says to you, not in your power. How you respond to it, entirely yours, every single time. And when you start living inside that distinction, rather than just knowing it intellectually, the provocateur stops being a threat and starts being irrelevant. Not because they changed, because your relationship to them did. That's the real counterattack. Not silence as a tactic you deploy once and forget. Silence as evidence of something deeper, that you've decided who you are. And no one gets to rewrite that in the middle of a bad afternoon. Stay in that. Stay solid. And if you found something in this worth keeping, share it with someone who needs it. That's the only algorithm that actually matters. Epictetus wasn't born free. That's the part that gets glossed over when people quote him in motivational content. He was a slave, owned no rights, no mobility, no control over almost anything in his external life. And out of that, out of conditions most of us will never come close to experiencing, he built one of the clearest philosophies of personal power that has ever existed, not despite his circumstances, because of what his circumstances forced him to confront. He had one thing that couldn't be taken, one thing his owner, the Roman Empire, the entire structure of the world he was born into, couldn't touch. His response, the space between what happened to him and what he did with it. And he figured out, probably through years of being tested in ways that would break most people, that that space was everything. That whoever controlled that space controlled their life, regardless of what was happening around them. So when we talk about silence as a weapon, we're not talking about a trick you read in a psychology article. We're talking about something much older, much harder. The kind of discipline that gets forged, not downloaded. The Stoics said, what if you're not? What if the thing that feels like vulnerability, the reaction, the wound, the way certain words hit certain places, what if that's not the truth of what you are? What if it's just the part that hasn't been worked yet? That's the question worth carrying. Not as a way of dismissing real pain. Pain is real, grief is real, the sting of betrayal doesn't get philosophized away, but as a frame for what's possible, as a reason to keep going back to the practice, even on the days when it doesn't feel like it's working, especially on those days. Because the days it doesn't feel like it's working are the days it's actually working hardest. The resistance you feel, the pull toward reacting, the impatience with the process, the moments where silence feels less like power and more like swallowing something that should have been said, that friction is the training. You're not failing the practice in those moments. You are the practice in those moments, fully, exactly as it was designed. Marcus Aurelius failed at this, constantly. His journals make that clear. He wrote the same reminders to himself over and over because he kept needing them. He lost his temper. He got pulled into things he knew better than to get pulled into. He wrote about it the next morning and started again. And he ran one of the most powerful empires in human history for nearly 2 decades. Not because he was perfect, but because he kept returning. Because the standard he held himself to was clear, even when his behavior fell short of it. That's the model, not perfection, return. Every time you catch yourself mid-reaction and pull back, even slightly, even imperfectly, that's a return. Every time you notice the pull toward defending yourself and choose, just this once, to let it go, that's a return. Every time you sit with the discomfort of being misunderstood and don't rush to correct it, return. The accumulation of those small, quiet choices is what builds the thing that can't be taken from you. And slowly, slower than you want, faster than you'll realize, you stop being someone who's working on this. You just become someone for whom this is how it works. The baseline shifts, the default changes, and the person who used to get under your skin becomes, over time, genuinely less interesting to you. Not because you stopped caring about people, but because you started caring about the right things, about what you're building, about where you're going, about who you actually want to be in the time you've got. That's the real counterattack, not the silence in the moment, though that matters. Not the steady eye contact or the 4-second pause or the one-word reply, though those work. The real counterattack is becoming someone for whom none of this is a performance anymore. Someone who doesn't need the win because they're no longer keeping score. Someone who walks into a hard room and doesn't feel the old familiar tightening because the work has already been done, quietly, over a long time, in the moments nobody saw. That person is available to you. It's not a personality type you either have or don't. It's a direction. And you can start walking it right now, today, with the next hard thing that comes your way. Stay with it. Come back when you fall short. And trust that the quiet version of this, the unglamorous, daily, unwitnessed version, is doing exactly what it's supposed to do.